All right. Hello, hello. Happy Friday, everybody. We are live on YouTube. We're live on Instagram. Hope everybody's doing really well today. I am very excited because we have one of my favorite topics today. Today, we are going to talk about boundaries. Yeah. So, why is this one of my favorite topics? I'm going to tell you about myself for a moment. So, I actually didn't grow up with very good boundaries. And I had to learn boundaries a little bit later in life. And I find that a lot of my clients are in a similar situation. A lot of them find that they're unhappy, they're feeling guilty a lot, they're having struggles in work, in their career, in life, they're feeling depressed, anxious, guilty. A lot of it is rooted in boundary issues. So, as the holidays approach, I felt like this was a phenomenal topic to tackle because boundaries are a topic that definitely arise around the holidays, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But let's talk about what boundaries are first. So, people who didn't grow up with boundaries often know about them a little bit too late because by the time they realize they don't really have boundaries, like myself, they feel miserable. Yeah, they feel taken advantage of. They feel sucked dry, driven by guilt. They don't understand why they're feeling this way. Boundaries are a set of rules or guidelines that help a person identify for themselves how others and others how to respond, behave, and interact with them. There can be boundaries for all sorts of things. For a person's body, for their physical space, for their emotional space, their relational space. There are financial boundaries, boundaries for the way they interact in the medical space. Those are some really basic boundaries. Most often, boundaries represent all of these things. The emotional, physical, and relational space you have rules around for yourself that you don't want others to cross. When you have structured boundaries with intention, consciousness, and authenticity, they are the container for healthy relationships. When you hold firm, strong, healthy boundaries, your relationships can thrive. And that's really the goal of creating, cultivating healthy rules and relational boundaries. When you crumble because of deep guilt, you waffle under weakness, fear, chances are you're going to struggle in your relationships, both with yourself and with others. Unfortunately, people hold faulty beliefs around boundaries, or they just completely have no understanding why they should hold boundaries or how to cultivate boundaries. They were never taught how to create healthy ones. And their models for boundaries just frankly completely suck. So, what are the top issues that you'll face if you don't have strong boundaries? Number one is stress. I see people overgiving, oversharing, taking on too much. This leads to conflict. They end up fighting in their relationships. This is the opposite, right, of what most people want. They avoid setting boundaries. Their desire is to have a healthy, happy relationship. And so they sit back and they like cower in fear because they don't want to be the person who sets up a situation that's rife with conflict because they think setting a boundary will create conflict, where the truth is that's the exact opposite. Setting a boundary will create a situation that will set you up for healthy relating. And when you're giving too much of yourself out of guilt, out of fear, this creates a pattern where you end up becoming a people pleaser or a nice guy. Those are very similar. They're not the same, but often, and this is stereotyping, women fall into the people pleaser pattern, men fall into the nice guy pattern. That's a whole other topic for another day. So, another issue if you lack boundaries, resentment. You resent the people you're in a relationship with, family, friends, whomever, your partner. But if you set up rules for engagement, your clients, your coworkers, your family, you can avoid this type of conflict. It sets expectations. Like, here's how I want to relate with you. Here's how we can be in a relationship that works for me, that works for you. If you have a pattern of over enmeshment or just enmeshment, right? One of the primary benefits of boundaries is to promote healthy, happy, intimate, yet independent and interdependent relationships. Issues around boundaries arise for folks who have patterns of enmeshment, attachment trauma. And so when there's attachment trauma, there are different types of attachment trauma, right? But then boundaries kind of fall by the wayside. What I want to talk about next, I'm going to talk about setting boundaries for the holidays. And then also, we're going to talk about how you can set strong boundaries. So, I want to share a little personal story about myself and holidays. I am always the person who sets boundaries. I am like the queen of boundary setting. I have a tendency to always teach my clients to set boundaries. I set boundaries with my clients, really strong boundaries. And then it's really important that I always teach my clients how to set boundaries in their lives. And as soon as they start setting boundaries in their lives, they actually start feeling a lot better in their bodies, in their minds, in their lives. In terms of a small, simple story around holidays, because holidays are coming up for us, I tend to get simple colds and stuff when I travel to the Midwest in the holiday season. But in general, when it comes to holidays and trauma, holidays tend to be full, especially for my clients and myself, because I grew up having a lot of trauma, childhood abuse and trauma in my life. And holidays weren't necessarily anything special, but they just remind me of my childhood. And it was filled with, not such nice things. And innocuous stimuli for one person can bring, so there you can have an innocuous stimuli. So take holidays. They're maybe innocuous, but for one person, they can bring sheer joy. For another person, they can actually trigger trauma. And for a lot of my clients, holidays actually trigger deep emotion. They trigger deep depression. They trigger old traumas. And something similar happens to me. I don't get the best feeling around holidays. And so it's no surprise that when I travel in the holiday season, I get sick. So I made a decision several holidays ago that traveling in the holidays wasn't going to be my top priority. But I am married in a family where my holidays are very important to them. And I start getting asked to travel for Christmas during the summertime. I'm Jewish, and so Christmas isn't that big of a deal to me. And it's got all this other weight to it. And so now that the pandemic has happened, there's a whole other layer of stuff on top of that. And I just made a very clear boundary this year, and I said, I'm not traveling during the holidays. That's where my boundary is. So when I was asked by my siblings to travel for Thanksgiving, I said, guys, I'm not traveling during the holidays. I don't want to get sick. I'm not traveling for anybody's holidays. And I laid down my boundaries. Nobody said anything. And, it's totally up to you where you set your boundaries and what feels comfortable. What happens to the person, though? I don't feel guilt about it. A lot of my clients, a lot of people I know would carry a lot of guilt for setting that boundary. They would hold on to different emotions around that: shame, guilt, fear, sadness. They would worry that their family would abandon them or feel all sorts of things. I set the boundary and feel no emotion about it. What can you do, however, for yourself to set boundaries? Whether it's around the holidays or just in general, so you can cultivate healthy relationships. First thing is, know your needs. Do you have needs around your body? Do you have needs around your mind, around your spirit? What are your needs? And this boundary setting and these very few tips I'm going to give you have to do with every single boundary that you go to set. So it could be a micro boundary or like a bigger boundary you're trying to set in your relationships. So what are your needs? And then from there, you can identify what the boundary is you want and need to set. And this might take some reflection. It might take some time for you to figure out. From there, it's important for you to communicate, to use your voice, to speak your voice and communicate your boundary clearly, calmly, and consistently. Sometimes people are unwilling to hear your boundary, they're unwilling to receive it, and you're going to need to voice it multiple times. It's not that you didn't say it, it's not that you didn't write it, it's not that you didn't communicate it, it's that they didn't want to receive it, and you're going to have to reiterate it. So, if your boundary isn't received, heard, respected, if it's just completely trampled on, that's not you. It is up to you at that point to take action. And for our next live, I am going to talk about toxic people and how to set boundaries with toxic people. So that is where this live ends. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful. Boundaries are definitely one of my areas of expertise. And if you need help with boundaries, I can, by all means, guide you and support you in that endeavor. Join me next live. I go live every other week. And I'm going to be talking about how to manage as much as you can, but how to deal with the toxic people in your life. And one of the pieces of that will be how to set boundaries with toxic people in your life. Hope you have a beautiful weekend. Be well, and I'll see you soon.